Little girl asks CEO for a car to surprise her poor dad. What happened next shocked everyone. 7-year-old Ella Martinez had always been different from other children her age. While her classmates worried about homework and playground games, Ella carried the weight of her family's struggles on her tiny shoulders. Every morning, she watched her father, Miguel, wake up at 4 a.m., his weathered hands already reaching for his work boots before his feet even touched the cold floor. But before we continue with this heartwarming story that will absolutely restore your faith in humanity, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss incredible stories like this one. And tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Trust me, what happens next will completely shock you. Now back to Ella's amazing journey. Miguel worked 3 jobs to keep their small apartment. He cleaned office buildings before dawn, worked construction during the day, and delivered food late into the night. His 1998 Honda Civic, with its cracked windshield and engine that coughed like an old man, was falling apart. The repair bills were mounting, and Miguel often walked to work when the car wouldn't start, sometimes arriving home well past midnight with blistered feet and an aching back. Ella had overheard the conversations between her parents late at night when they thought she was asleep. Her mother, Rosa, would cry softly as she counted and recounted their meager savings. "We need $800 for the transmission," she'd whisper. "Where are we going to find $800, Miguel?" "I'll figure it out, mi amor," Miguel would always respond, though his voice carried a weariness that made Emma's chest tight with worry. The little girl had tried everything she could think of to help her family. She'd collected every penny, nickel, and dime she found on the street during her walks to school, carefully storing them in an old mason jar hidden under her bed. She'd emptied her piggy bank that held mostly buttons, paper clips, and a few coins she'd saved from her birthday money over the years. She'd even approached her teacher, Mrs. Henderson, after class one day to ask if there were any jobs a 7-year-old could do to earn money, maybe cleaning erasers or organizing books. Mrs. Henderson had smiled sadly and explained that children her age weren't allowed to work, but she'd given Ella an extra snack from her desk drawer and told her she was proud of how much she cared about her family. But no matter what Ella did, it was never enough. The car got worse every day, making stranger noises and breaking down more frequently. Her father got more exhausted, his shoulders slumping lower each morning as he prepared for another grueling day of work. Sometimes Ella would catch him in quiet moments, massaging his temples or stretching his sore back, and she wished desperately that she could do something, anything, to help ease his burden. Then, during career day at school, something extraordinary happened that would change everything. James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Automotive Group, came to speak to Ella's class. The children had been studying different professions, and several parents and community members were invited to share their experiences. James Morrison was by far the most impressive guest. He arrived in a sleek black Mercedes, wore an expensive tailored suit that probably cost more than Ella's family spent on groceries in 6 months, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never wondered where his next meal would come from. He was tall and intimidating in his expensive suit, but when he talked about starting his business with just one used car lot 25 years ago, working 16-hour days and sleeping in his office, Ella heard something in his voice that reminded her of her father, determination mixed with kindness, and the unmistakable sound of someone who understood what it meant to work hard for everything you had. After his presentation, while other children asked about his fancy cars, his mansion, and how much money he made, Ella stayed seated, her small hands folded in her lap, her mind racing with a plan that seemed both impossible and absolutely necessary. As the other kids filtered out for recess, chattering excitedly about luxury cars and wealth, she approached Mr. Morrison with the quiet confidence that only children possess when they have nothing left to lose and everything to gain. "Excuse me, Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her heart pounding so hard she worried he might hear it. James looked down at the small girl with curious eyes, struck by her serious expression. "Yes, sweetheart. What's your name?" "I'm Ella Martinez," she said, taking a deep breath. "My daddy needs a car, and I don't know who else to ask." The simple honesty in her words made James pause. He'd been asked for money countless times, by charity organizations, business partners, even strangers on the street. But there was something different about this child, something that made him want to listen. "Tell me more about that, Ella." "Our car is very sick," Ella said, choosing her words carefully. "It makes scary noises and sometimes it won't start at all. When that happens, Daddy has to walk to work. Sometimes he walks for hours, and when he comes home, his feet have blisters and he can barely stand up. Mommy cries when she thinks I'm not looking, and they whisper about money late at night when they think I'm asleep. James knelt down to Ella's level, struck by the matter-of-fact way she spoke about such heavy burdens. No 7-year-old should have to worry about such things, yet here was this little girl carrying the weight of her family's struggles with remarkable grace. "Tell me about your daddy, Ella. What kind of person is he?" Ella's face immediately lit up with pure love and admiration. "His name is Miguel Martinez, and he's the best daddy in the whole world. He works really, really hard, harder than anybody I know. He leaves our house before the sun comes up, and sometimes he doesn't come home until after I'm already asleep. But he never, ever complains. Not once. Even when his back hurts or his feet are sore, he just says he's grateful to have work." She paused, her small voice growing even more earnest. "When I was sick last month with a fever, he stayed up all night putting cold towels on my head and reading me stories. He shares his food with me even when there's not very much, and he taught me that being poor doesn't mean being bad. He says that working hard is something to be proud of, no matter what kind of work it is." James felt something stir in his chest, a mixture of admiration and heartbreak. "That sounds like a very good man, Ella." "He is," she said firmly. "And I want to help him, but I'm just a little kid. I saved up all my money, $12.37, but Mommy says we need $800 to fix our car." She reached into her small backpack and pulled out a wrinkled envelope, handling it like it contained the most precious treasure in the world. "I know it's not enough, but it's everything I have. Could you maybe help my daddy get a car that works?" James Morrison had built a multi-million-dollar business. He'd negotiated with banks, investors, and corporate executives. He'd given speeches to thousands of people and had been featured on magazine covers. But in that moment, looking at this 7-year-old girl offering him her life savings with such pure hope, he felt something shift in his chest. "Emma," he said gently, "can you tell me more about your father? What kind of person is he?" Emma's face lit up. "He's the best daddy in the whole world. When I was sick last month, he stayed up all night putting cold towels on my head. He reads me stories even when he's super tired. And he always shares his food with me, even when there's not very much. He taught me that being poor doesn't mean being bad, and that working hard is something to be proud of." She paused, then added with the wisdom that sometimes comes from hardship, "Mr. Morrison, I don't need toys or fancy clothes or anything like that. I just want my daddy to not be so tired all the time. I want him to have a car that works so he can come home earlier and maybe we can read stories together again like we used to when I was little." James felt tears prick his eyes. In 25 years of business, he'd met thousands of people. He'd sat across boardroom tables from millionaires and billionaires, negotiated with banks and investors, been pitched by the most persuasive salespeople in the world. But here was a child who understood sacrifice and love better than most adults he knew, offering him everything she had not for herself, but for her father. "Ella, where does your father work?" "He cleans the big buildings downtown early in the morning before anyone else gets there," she said, counting on her small fingers. "Then he works at the construction site on Maple Street where they're building new houses. And at night, he delivers food for that app on his phone, driving all around the city until really late." James Morrison had built a multi-million-dollar empire from nothing. He'd started with a single used car lot and a dream, working 18-hour days, sleeping in his office, eating ramen noodles for months on end. He'd clawed his way to success through sheer determination and an unshakable work ethic. But somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten what it felt like to struggle, forgotten the desperation of wondering how to make ends meet. This 7-year-old girl was reminding him of his own humble beginnings and the values that had driven him before success had made life comfortable. James Morrison made a decision that would change everything. "Ella, I want you to go home and tell your parents that someone wants to meet them. Tell them that James Morrison from the car dealership would like to have a conversation with them. Can you do that?" Ella nodded eagerly, her eyes bright with hope, clutching her envelope of life savings like a lifeline. That evening, Miguel and Rosa received a phone call that they initially thought was a cruel prank. James Morrison, the CEO whose face appeared on billboards around the city, whose success story was legendary in their community, wanted to meet with them personally. When they realized the call was genuine, they were terrified. What could a man of his stature and wealth possibly want with their struggling family? Had Ella somehow gotten into trouble at school? Had she said something inappropriate during his presentation? The next day, dressed in their best clothes, which weren't much, but clean and pressed with care, the Martinez family arrived at Morrison Automotive Group. The gleaming showroom, filled with luxury cars that cost more than they'd earn in 5 years, made them feel even smaller and more out of place. Rosa gripped Miguel's hand tightly, while Ella looked around in wonder at the beautiful vehicles surrounding them. But when James Morrison approached them, something unexpected happened. Instead of the cold, distant businessman they'd expected, they were greeted by a man whose eyes were warm and whose smile was genuine. "Mr. and Mrs. Martinez," he said, shaking Miguel's calloused hand firmly, "your daughter is remarkable." Miguel's face flushed with pride and confusion. "Sir, I don't understand. Has Ella done something wrong?" "On the contrary," James smiled. "She's done something incredibly right. Ella came to me not asking for herself, but asking for help for her family. She offered me everything she had, $12.37, to help get you a reliable car." Rosa gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Ella had never told them about her conversation with the CEO. James continued, "In my 25 years of business, I've met thousands of people. I've seen greed, manipulation, and selfishness. But yesterday, I met a 7-year-old girl who taught me something about love, sacrifice, and family that I'd forgotten." He led them toward the back of the showroom. "Miguel, I've done some research. I know about your 3 jobs, your work ethic, and your reputation. Every one of your employers had nothing but praise for you. They called you reliable, honest, and hardworking." Miguel's eyes widened. You called my employers?" "I did. And I also know that you've never missed a day of work, even when your car broke down. You've walked miles rather than disappoint anyone counting on you. That's the kind of character that can't be bought or taught." They stopped in front of a modest but reliable 2020 Honda Accord, gleaming under the showroom lights. "This car," James said, "has a full warranty, excellent safety ratings, and gets great gas mileage. It will serve your family well for many years to come." Miguel stared at the car, then at James, confusion written across his face. "Sir, I appreciate you showing us this, but we can't afford." "Miguel," James interrupted gently, "this car is yours. Paid in full." The silence that followed was deafening. Rosa began to sob, her hands shaking as she covered her face. Miguel stood frozen, unable to process what he'd just heard. "But sir," Miguel finally managed, "I can't accept this. It's too much. I haven't earned it." James placed a hand on Miguel's shoulder. "Haven't you? You've earned it through 18-hour workdays. You've earned it by raising a daughter who would give her last penny to help her father. You've earned it by being the kind of man who walks miles to work rather than let people down." Ella, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "Daddy, does this mean you won't have to walk to work anymore?" Miguel knelt down and pulled his daughter into his arms, tears streaming down his face for the first time in years. "No, Mija. Daddy won't have to walk anymore." But James Morrison wasn't finished. "There's one more thing," he said. "Miguel, I've been looking for someone to manage our community outreach program. It's a full-time position that would replace your 3 jobs, with benefits and a salary that will support your family comfortably. The position is yours if you want it." Rosa collapsed into a nearby chair, overwhelmed by the sudden turn their lives had taken. "But why?" Miguel asked, his voice breaking. "Why are you doing this for us?" James smiled, looking at Ella, who was beaming with joy. "Because your daughter reminded me why I started my business in the first place. It wasn't just to make money, it was to help families, to be part of the community, to make a difference. Somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that. Ella helped me remember." He turned to Ella. "And young lady, this is your $12.37 back. You keep that. You've already given me something far more valuable than money." 6 months later, the Morrison Automotive Group launched the Ella Martinez Family Foundation, providing reliable transportation to hardworking families in need. Miguel became the program's director, using his experience and understanding of struggle to help identify families who needed support. Ella, now 8, still carries that wrinkled envelope with her $12.37. Not because she needs it, but because it reminds her that sometimes the smallest acts of courage can change everything. The Honda Accord sits in their driveway every evening when Ella comes home from school, and Miguel is there to greet her with a smile and energy for bedtime stories. Rosa has started a small catering business from their new home, and for the first time in years, the Martinez family goes to bed without worry. James Morrison learned that success isn't just measured in profit margins and quarterly reports. Sometimes it's measured in the grateful tears of a father who can finally tuck his daughter into bed on time, or in the courage of a 7-year-old girl who dared to ask for help when her family needed it most. This incredible story reminds us that miracles happen when compassion meets courage. Ella's bravery and James Morrison's generosity prove that there are still good people in this world willing to help others. If this story moved you like it moved me, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to believe in kindness today. Subscribe for more heartwarming stories that restore faith in humanity, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss these amazing tales. I want to know, what would you have done in Ella's situation? And tell me in the comments where you're watching from around the world. Remember, sometimes the smallest acts of courage can create the biggest miracles. Until next time, keep believing in the power of human kindness.